it's Rob here at Cultivated Management, and today I'm going to share with you why photography is making me a better leader and manager. See, photography for me is a creative endeavor, and like most creative endeavors, it's about noticing the world around you. It's about spotting things and then focusing on something and containing it within that picture, whether it be a square or a rectangle. This art of noticing is directly transferable into the world of management and leadership. It's about spotting things that are happening. It's about observing the world around you and asking, why is this happening? What's interesting here? It's about focusing your energy and attention on just some things. Like photography, when I'm taking a picture and I'm composing an image, I'm choosing what to include in the photo and I'm choosing to exclude certain other aspects. And exactly the same in business. When we're leading teams or we're managing, what we're doing is we're focusing energy on attention on certain aspects, because we can't solve every problem in business. We can't take on all of the work that's required in the world of work. We don't have enough time, energy, or attention to do that. So we have to narrow our scope. We have to draw a frame around what we're going to tackle, and we're going to have to sort of tell a story about that. We're going to have to focus our attention on it. And this is the art of photography. And this is why I really enjoy it. And I think it brings a real level of noticing the world, seeing the unseen, but also seeing the obvious, the things that many people may take for granted. So I first got into photography when I was about 14, I think it was. I bought my first film camera, an old Pentax, from a charity shop, and I'd wander around the streets of Sheffield snapping photos of whatever took my fancy. See, my dad was a photographer in the 80s, an amateur photographer, but he took some cracking photos. And the thing with photography that I really enjoy is there's this sort of legacy, there's this sort of historical story. And when we think about the world of work, it's the same thing. There's a history that got the company to where it is, and there are people who played their part in it. And you're playing your part in that business at the moment. You're continuing the story. And in 10 to 15 years' time, people may or may not remember the things that you did, the nudges you made, the work you contributed, the people you affected. And it's the same when I look at my dad's photos, and when I look at the photos I took 10 years ago, they tell a story. They're snapshots in time, they're moments, they're things that I chose to capture. And there's this tiny bit of me that well, it's not a tiny bit, you'll know if you've watched this channel enough, I'm a sentimental old fool. And there's part of me that thinks in like 10 to 15 years time, when my kids look back at the photos, or anybody does on Instagram, for example, they'll see the world as well, I saw it, as what I chose to capture, what I chose to notice. You know, when I look at my dad's photos, you know, we're never going to wear those same clothes again. We don't drive those cars anymore, or at least not often. We don't have those same sort of structure of the world as he saw it and what he chose to capture through his own perception of his reality. And that's the same when I think about my photos. You know, people will look back on them and go, oh, I remember when all those cars were the rage, or Winchester looked like that, or this housing estate was built in this particular area. These are the kind of things that I like to capture, a sort of legacy, my own little part of the internet. But it's not really just for the internet, it's about me learning to notice. So the camera I choose to use is this Ricoh GR. Bought this probably about 10 years ago, I think it was, when I saw lots of great street photographers on Instagram using this camera. It's a fixed 28mm, which means it's very wide compared to the traditional standard of 35mm. And so when I'm taking photos with this, I've got a much wider picture to construct. So I can include a lot more stuff, for example, but I've also still got to exclude things. I've got to look at the edges and the boundary of the frame and decide what I want to capture. Now, of course, I could crop in post-production, but I really like to try and keep my camera photos straight from the camera, really, with very little minimal post-production. That's just how I like it. I don't want to be fiddling around in in Affinity Photo, for example, afterwards. There's no zoom, so if I want to zoom, I've got to walk, I've got to move closer. So it's really forced me actually with that wide picture to really think about how I'm constructing what I'm noticing. The other thing with this camera is it doesn't have a very big depth of field, so you know, that sort of blurred background, that bokeh effect. Pretty tricky to get on this. It's not impossible, but it's pretty hard to do. So almost everything in the photo is in focus. So again, I'm having to think about, what do I want to notice? What do I want to choose to include in this picture? When we think about the world of work, we get to choose what's in focus. And I think as a manager or a leader, it's really important to start really observing everything that's happening around you, the interactions, the way that work moves or doesn't, the way that people come together to solve problems, the way that the organization and the systems that are involved all interact. Just like management and leadership, photography requires practice, just going out and shooting and taking lots of photos. And in the world of work, how do we do this? We practice through making decisions, by gathering the facts and the evidence and the data and the studying, and then focusing our energy and attention. Now, of course, there's a very real reality that I may have pushed this analogy a little bit too far, and I suspect I probably have. But for me, the art of noticing is the art of leadership and management. But when we're at work, we're creating a legacy of sort of people we've helped, people we've affected positively or negatively, the work we've done, the changes we make, the initiatives we launch, the products that we've helped to build. This is a legacy, a tiny legacy in our lives. And for me, photography is also that, a moment to capture things. And if over a long period of time I've built a reasonable body of work, then people will see that thread and understand maybe a little bit more about me, but certainly learn more about what I thought was important. Because when I'm choosing a photo, when I'm choosing management and leadership, when I'm choosing what projects to focus on, they're all coming from a place inside of me, of what I'm choosing to focus on. And that's why, in a sense, a company always becomes a reflection of the leaders and the managers, because they're the ones drawing attention, drawing a frame, focusing energy and attention. You know what? I think I really have pushed this analogy way too far. And with that, I hope you've enjoyed this little video. It's just a short, fun little video about how photography is helping me become a better leader and manager. Now, if you're into a creative endeavor, then please let me know in the comments what it is you do. Painting, sculpture, art, photography, videography, whatever it is. And do you see parallels between that as a creative pursuit and maybe your day job? If so, let me know. I'll be interested to hear whether or not other people think like me or whether I'm just a bit weird. Anyway, with that, I hope you enjoyed the video and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.